Good afternoon, everyone. So, yesterday we were discussing about ESR or EPR spectroscopy. Okay. Now, after discussing that, we have discussed how we can find out how many splittings we will get for a particular electron, and we have seen for H plus radical, we would get two what you call two peaks. Okay, and why we are getting two peaks, that we have discussed. Okay. Now, we had also discussed about if we had H2 plus radicals, then what would happen? And we have seen that in that case, the chances of electron arrangement, there are three types of arrangement, and based upon that, we will get three peaks, and all these peaks will be in the ratio of 1 is to 2 is to 1. So one important thing you should remember is that this 1 is to 2 is to 1, it is a theoretical concept. Okay. In practicality, it you may not get in 1 is to 2 is to 1. Maybe you may get say 0.98 is to say around 2 is to 0.995. Okay. So under practical consideration, you will get this thing, but theoretically, you should get 1 is to 2 is to 1. Okay. And also, the we have discussed that the distance between the two peaks, it is called the hyperfine splitting constant, which is represented by J. Then from there we had talked about CH3 radical, which has three protons, and we have discussed about the this proton spins, how the proton spins are there, and accordingly how these proton spins, they can affect the bare electron peaks over here, and from there we have generalized this Pascal triangle. Okay. And we have seen how to calculate these values. If there are no protons, we will get one peak. If there is one proton or two proton or three proton or four proton, we have tried to find out like this. So accordingly, we can find out the other, we can generalize to, if I say you find out if there are 10 protons, how the splitting will be done, then you should be able to find out how the hypersplitting will be done. Okay, so you have to apply the Pascal's triangle formula, and you can find out the ratio of peak ratios for the hypersplitting. Okay, hypersplitting peaks. Okay. Now, coming to the number of splittings, how we can predict in the number of splittings, if you see H2 plus radical, which is a cationic radical, if you have to find out the splitting, the number of splitting is given by 2ni, where I is the spin quantum number and n is the number of active nuclei. Herein the number of the active nuclei, it is 2. Okay, so 2 multiplied by 2. Now how many protons are there? There are two number of protons multiplied by spin quantum number. What is the spin quantum number of the proton? It is half. Okay, so we get a total of 3. So for H2 plus cationic radical, we would get 3 peaks. And if you see over here, we have found out the same thing, that for H2 cationic radical, we had 3 peaks. Okay. Similarly, if you have CH3 radical, so the CH3 radical, we may have two types of isotopes. The first one is CH3 isotope, C13 isotope. Sorry, there are two types of isotopes. C13 isotope. C13 isotope. It is an ESR active molecule, whereas C12 isotope, it is ESR inactive atom, as 12, this atomic mass, it is divisible by 4. It is important to note that um, any atom which is having an atomic mass say A, and this A, if it is completely divisible by 4, then it will not give any ESR spectra. Okay, then it will not give any ESR spectra. You should remember this. Okay. Now, herein we have number of active nuclei. We are having 3. Okay, why 3? Because of the presence of this proton H3. So the number of active nuclei what we are having, it is 3. So the number of splitting over here would be 2 multiplied by 3 multiplied by half plus 1. This half, this is the spin quantum number of the proton H. Okay, so this comes out to be 4. Now if you look over here, CH3 dot, we were having 4 what do you call, 4 number of peaks, and this was the peak we were talking about. So 1 is to 3 is to 3 is to 1. Okay. Now then we have say CH3 CH2 radical. Okay, so in this, how will you find out? Now you have to break down this one and this one. So the numbers of splitting would be 2 of N1 into I1 plus 1. So N1 is 3 because we are having 3 protons, and I1 is I2 half. Okay, so you do this and you get 4. Similarly, for CH2 radical, you would be getting 2 of N2 into I2 plus 1. Herein N2 is 2 and I2 is half. Okay, so plus 1. So we here we get 3. So in total, for this molecule, ethane radical, we will be getting 12 number of splittings. Okay, now let's talk about the naphthalene radical. In the case of naphthalene radical, if you see 1, 2, 3 and 4, there are 4 hydrogen atoms which are facing similar chemical environment. Okay. Secondly, the other 4 hydrogen atoms, 1, 2, these blue marked hydrogen atoms, 3 and 4, they are also facing what do you call, these 4 hydrogen atoms, they are facing similar chemical environment. So 2 into N is 4 into half plus 1. Okay, so this becomes 5 for these red circled hydrogen atoms and 5 for this blue circled hydrogen atoms. So we get 5 multiplied by 5. So we would be getting 25 number of splittings. Okay, are you getting my point? Now, next thing is, if we have CH radical CH2, in this case, in the same way, what you will be getting? 2 into 1 into half. This one is from this. So 2 into 1 into half. So plus 1. So how much we get? We get 2. Okay. So wherever, if you want to draw the splitting like this, so wherever this radical will be there, that will be the first splitting. Okay. So in this first splitting, we will be having 2 splittings. So this is the first split and the second split. So this is the barycenter electron. Then there is a splitting. Now for this one, what you will be having? We are having 2 protons, 2 into half. So this gets cut out. So we get 2 plus 1, 3. So we have 3. Okay. Now each of these 2 splittings, they will be broken down into 3. So see, this one is again broken down into 3 and this one is also again broken down into 3. So we call it doublets of triplets. Okay, and in total, if you see over here, in total there are 6 lines. In this case, where the radical position has shifted, you would again get the 6 atoms, 6 hypersplitting. But if you see, total you are having 6, but initially there is a there are 3 splitting and then there are 2 splitting of each of these initial stage splitting. Okay, so it is called triplets of doublets. Okay, triplets of doublets. Then you are having this molecule. So over here the radical is at say here. Okay, so from here what you would get, you would get initially 3 splitting. Okay, then you have these plus hydrogen ions. So these hydrogen ions, they would give you 3 splitting. Then you have these 2 hydrogen atoms which are having similar what you call this they are having similar chemical environment. So these two would again give 3, and lastly this red marked hydrogen, it will give you 2 splitting. So in total you will be having 3 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 2, which comes out to be 54. Now in case of next is in case of NH2 radical, so herein over N we are having the radical position and N is ESR active. Okay, because it is nitrogen 14, it is not divisible by 4, right? So it is active.
So we couldn't hear you for one moment.
Uh,
When you started NH2 radical, we couldn't hear you
okay.
just then.
So what happens is that so over here you have this NH2 radical. So N radical, it is present over the N. Okay. Now when we talk about N molecular weight is 14, nitrogen 14. Now this 14, it is not divisible by 4. Hence N is ESR active. Okay. Since it is ESR active, it will show splitting. So 2 into N, small n is, here nitrogen is 1. So we will get 1 multiplied by I for nitrogen, In, say In, it is 1. Okay. Plus 1, so it comes out to be 3. So initially we will be having 3 splittings over here due to the nitrogen. Now this hydrogen will come. Now the hydrogen will you are having 2 number of hydrogens, so we will be getting 3 splitting. So each of these nitrogen splitting will again be broken down into 3 splittings. Okay, so in total 3 from the nitrogen and 3 from the hydrogen we will get. In total of 9 splittings we will get in case of NH2 radical. Okay. Now next you can get some numericals from here. So let's discuss about what type of numericals you can get. So the first one is calculate the ESR frequency of an unpaired electron in a magnetic field of 3000 Gauss. So if the magnetic field is given in Gauss, please do not forget to convert it into Tesla. So how to convert it in Tesla? I would show you the conversion factor which we discussed yesterday. If you see 0.3350 Tesla is equal to 3350 Gauss, right? That means if you are getting the magnetic field in Gauss, for getting into Tesla, you have to divide by 10,000. Okay, you have to divide by 10,000. So herein, so we want to find out the ESR frequency of an unpaired electron in a magnetic field of 3000 Gauss. So what is it in Tesla? In Tesla, it is the magnetic field is 0.3 Tesla. Now we have discussed that delta E, it is equal to basically h mu, which where mu is the Larmor frequency, and this energy h mu, it is the energy it will be absorbed by the electrons to move from the low energy state to the high energy state, and also while it moves back to its original position, it will release that energy of the same frequency. So delta E equals to h mu, which is equal to G, which is the Landau factor, B Bohr magneton, and beta Bohr magneton, and B is the magnetic field. So G, we will take it as 2. If you see, we have discussed G over here 2.0023 in this case. Okay. So for the sake of simplicity, we would consider G to be 2, then beta, which is the Bohr magneton, it is given by 9.274 into 10 to the power minus 24 joule per Tesla. Okay, joule per Tesla. And B, it is your it is in Tesla, 0.3 Tesla, and then you have H, which is given by 6.627 into 10 to the power minus 34 joule second. Now if you see over here, you are having at the numerator Tesla multiplied by Tesla, then this H, if it comes over here, joule second. So this Tesla cuts out, this one and this one cuts out, and you are left with per second unit. Okay, you are left with per second unit, which is related to the frequency. So whenever you want to do like this, you please find out, you check the units whether they are cancelling out or not. So this will give you the confidence whether you are going in a right way or not. Okay, so here once you put these values over here, you get the values in megahertz. So you put it in megahertz, and this would be your value. Okay. Now the second question which you may get is that calculate the G value. Herein we have assumed G value, but it may be such that you have to calculate the G value, and it is one of the common experiments which is being carried out in ESR or EPR laboratory experiments. Okay. Calculate the G value if the methyl radical shows ESR at 3290 Gauss in a spectrometer operating at 9230 megahertz. Okay. Now if you see, this is your frequency and this is equal to G beta B by H. Now you have to find out the Landau factor. So you can you rearrange this in such way, mu H divided by beta B, and you get the Landau factor, and it is around 2.0047. So this is your G factor. Alright. And the last type of question what you may get is that the ESR spectrum of hydrogen atom studied in an ESR spectrometer operating at 9300 megahertz shows two lines at 3570 Gauss and 3044 Gauss. Calculate the hyperfine splitting constant HSC for the hydrogen atom. So if you look over here, in these cases what I have told, The hyperfine splitting constant, it is given by the distance between the two splittings, right? Now, in this case, what you will be getting? You are getting two splittings. You have been given with two splittings at two position 3570 and 3044 Gauss for a particular hydrogen atom. Now, your hyperfine splitting constant is nothing but you have to just subtract this and you would get the this hyperfine splitting constant. Okay. Now, over here, this is a molecular orbital diagram of two singlet excited states as well as the triplet ground state of the molecular dioxygen. Okay. From left to right, the diagrams are for 1 delta G singlet oxygen first excited state, 1 sigma plus G singlet oxygen second excited state, and 3 sigma minus G triplet oxygen state, triplet oxygen ground state. Okay, the lowest energy 1s molecular orbitals are uniformly filled in all the three and are omitted for simplicity. The broad horizontal lines labeled pi, pi star each represent two molecular orbitals for filling up of 4 electrons in total. Okay, the three states only differ in the occupancy and the spin states of the electrons in the two degenerate pi star antibonding orbital. Okay, now what happens over here? Why I am showing you this thing? If you look into this 2p orbital, so what happens if you see this one is in the singlet state, this one is also in the singlet state, sorry, triplet state. Okay, now this is in the triplet state, this is in the singlet state. Okay, this is also in the singlet state. Okay, but if you see in all of these, we are having pairing up of electrons. Okay, over here, and over here also. So we can find there are some pairing of electrons and they cancel each other. However, if you look into this region, what is happening is that in the excited state, uh, when we are in the singlet state over here, they are cancelling the magnetic moment over here. Here also they are cancelling the local magnetic effect. Okay, but these are coming from two separate oxygens. Okay, now herein when these are coupling and they are cancelling each other's magnetic field, in this case, this 1 delta G case, we do not get any magnetic field due to the spin component. Okay, what we get is that we get the what you call magnetic moment due to the electrons which are moving on the orbital. Okay, on the orbit due to the movement of the electrons around the nucleus on its orbit. Okay, so basically that is the orbital magnetic field. Now in such a case, we will not get ESR spectra, but the spectra what we will be getting, it is called a pure EPR spectra. It is called a pure EPR spectra. Okay, so next is the uh, how an ESR spectrometer work. Okay, it is similar to that of your what do you call this NMR spectroscopy. So you have the scanning unit for the sweeping magnetic current, magnet power supply. You have this magnet over here. So they help in the sweeping of this thing. So the magnetic field over the sample, and over here we are having this klystron oscillator. Now this klystron oscillator, it generates the microwaves. Okay. Now this microwaves are being passed through the isolator. This isolator, what it tries is that it tries to reduce the variations within the microwaves, radiations which are being generated. Okay. Still over here we are having a polychromatic microwave till the isolator. As soon as the microwave, this polychromatic isolate, these microwaves, they move through the isolator and moves into wave meter. This wave meter is basically a filter, and it only helps in the passing of a particular frequency of this thing of microwaves radiations through it. Okay, so it is basically a wavelength selector. This wave meter, it is a wavelength selector, and after a particular frequency is being selected, it goes through the attenuator, and where the magnitude or the intensity of the microwaves are reduced and made suitable for this ESR or EPR experiment. EPR experiment. Okay. Now, once it enters over here, there is a circulator. If you see, there is a circulator. So initially, the microwaves, they move into this circulator over here in this fashion, and then it moves towards the arm 3. Okay, through this arm 3, it comes over here, it interacts with the sample, and then it moves out and moves towards the arm 4. Okay, now through this it goes to the detector crystals, which are made up of silicon. Okay, and then it becomes comes into an becomes an electrical signal, and then they are recorded. However, post this detector, some of the microwaves are pushed back into this circulator, and it moves towards the arm 2, where it is having a terminating load. Okay, now in this terminating load, what happens is that whatever the residual microwaves are reaching over here, they are being absorbed at this terminating load, so that they do not enter into the spectrometer again. Okay, and this is how it works. So what do you call this is how an ESR or EPR spectrometer it works. This as I said, this klystron microwave generator, it is used for the generation of the microwaves. There is another oscillator which is regarded as the gun oscillator. This is also used for the generation of the microwaves in modern day ESR spectroscopes. Okay.
Sir, there are splitting in case of coordination compound due to the presence of the ligands like T2G and EZ splitting, and in the EMR also the splitting is there due to like photons. So how we will distinguish that splitting is due to the presence of the ligands or due to the photons excitation?
Splitting due to the photon excitation. Why photon will give rise to splitting? Here is nothing. If you look into the spectrometer, there is no photon involved over here. We are only talking about this the splitting due to the electron, this changes in the magnetic coupling between the electrons and the protons, both in the NMR and the ESR. In ESR, we are basically working with the electrons, and in the NMR, we are basically working with the protons. Okay, so if you see what you call in electron in ESR, we are working in the working with the microwaves. Okay, and in NMR we are working with the what you call this radio waves, radio frequency waves. So if you see both of them, they are having distinct frequencies. Now ESRs, they undergo precision uh, which is having frequency which corresponds to microwave radiation. So we are exciting the electrons using this thing. So we are specifically trying to get some information from the electrons. Okay, now since we are putting this magnet over here across the sample, the protons will also be getting magnetized, right? Now since the protons are also getting magnetized, so what will happen is that they will also create some magnetic field, and that magnetic field is basically interacting with this ESR spectra, and due to that you are having the splitting. Here there is no photon involved. Over here in NMR we have discussed about that proton was generating one magnetic field, magnetic moment, and across that we were having some electrons and they were shielding. No, how they were shielding? They were creating a local magnetic field, right? So in neither of this ESR and NMR, we have photons involved over here. It's only about magnetization and magnetization vector, how it is increasing and decreasing. So if you see, as I said you, in both the cases, we have this z axis, this 3 axis. So this is say B0, and then we have this yeah. Then we have this net magnetization vector in this area. Okay. Now when we flip this, it goes to the high energy state. So this is the alpha state. From here it goes to the beta state. So say beta state, I draw it in. I will draw it using maybe black one. Okay. So now it is in the beta state. So now when it will go, when we irradiate this either electron or proton using h mu radio frequency. Okay, and then they will go back to its original position, and during when it is going back to its original position, it will release the h mu. So nowhere any photon is involved.
Sir, these radio frequencies, they are electromagnetic waves. So wave have both. It has both character, photons and also wave and particle character. So whether it is like transmitting to the particle character or the wave character. If it is the particle, then it must be a photon. Therefore, the energy is in the form of h nu.
So these are over here, it is considered that these are wave characters. So when you are talking about these radio frequency components, when they are particle, what happens? Particle, they get refracted. Okay. So if you are having an atoms, so if you have a photon, it will come near here and it may be diffracted after striking over here. So we are not considering the particle character when we are discussing the ESR or the NMR. Okay, we are considering it as the wave. This thing we are considering it as a wave, and we are considering that when it is getting into this sample holder, these waves are used to change the this magnetic moment states. Okay, we are using it to change the magnetic moment states from the high energy state, from the low energy state to the high energy state, and then when it goes back to its original, releases that energy, which is again in the waveform. Okay, because if you consider, if you see, we were having these sweep coils. When do you use the sweep coils basically? Sweep coils are not used to generate particles. They are used to generate the or sense the waves. Okay, electromagnetic radiations.
Yes, sir. Ghanshyam also says this.
Okay. Anyone else who is having any other question? No? Okay.